You press record first.
I pressed yes. Yes.
Do you want me to begin from the beginning?
Begin from the beginning, sir.
मैं
जब से
एकदम
सूरज
वैसे
चांद
करूँ
रहेगा that type
ना
का.
क्यूएन कुछ करना है कि should I talk something regarding the film या hello hello से करना है?
नहीं करो सर. Hello.
Okay. Hello. Welcome back to Queen is Dead. I'm
Yeah.
Sanjeet. I have Dhruv and Aryan with me. And we'll soon also be joined by Ashwani as we discuss three recent releases in Hindi cinema by three filmmakers who are often seen in each other's special thanks before the film begins. Namely, the films that we are discussing are Almost Pyaar DJ Mohabbat by Anurag Kashyap, Faraaz by Hansal Mehta, and Bheed by Anubhav Sinha. So we begin with Almost Pyaar DJ Mohabbat by Anurag Kashyap.
टिंग टांगियों को सुंदर सलोनी अम्मी का सलाम कहने लगे हमें जय बताओ ये मोहब्बत है कौन और कहाँ आएगी
डीजे मोहब्बत इस साल होली पर अपना ऑलमोस्ट प्यार भरा कॉन्सर्ट लेकर आ रहा है गोवा से सीधे पहाड़ों में मिलते हैं
What do you guys think?
Sanjeet, you tell us first. He's your favorite filmmaker, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, actually.
Yeah.
I think what I told you guys before, that needs to have there needs to be a disclaimer before we begin any Anurag Kashyap film discussion, that it's not going to be the same Kashyap who we knew like years back. He changed post, you can say Manmarziya / choked around that film. And now it's a totally different way of him making films.
Yeah.
Like he says that he's not an angry filmmaker, but I feel Mukkabaz was as angry as it could
I mean,
be.
there is anger in this film, I feel. A fair amount.
For sure.
Subdued.
I mean, like more, it's more internalized.
Restrained
also.
also.
Yes.
Yeah.
More
yes.
restrained.
Yes.
But I feel that has kind of also taken a toll on how storytelling happens in his films, or like how characters are crafted, or where they are placed in like a socioeconomic landscape. I think I would still say I liked this film over Dobara.
Yes.
And almost like slightly below Choked, because I still feel Choked had was a little more outspoken about what it was and how it was. It had some more interesting ideas with like magical realism and all of that, I feel, which was like more evident with like some of the imagery and all. But here it's not that at all. So, I mean, it's
so I mean, this is basically like this
interesting.
is your second worst Kashyap film for you.
Like amongst the least favorite, not worst.
Got it.
Dobara, I didn't really like, you know that.
Yes.
I've told you because I
told you, but then you were also watching it very much from a Kashyap perspective. I was watching it from a adaptation perspective, where I was like, this makes some amount of sense.
I feel of all things, a remake by him we wouldn't see another remake by him, I feel. Probably. After Dobara.
Yeah.
And I feel, and I think Dobara and this both DJ Mohabbat are like more delayed releases. Like he started shooting this in 2018, 2019 time.
So there's a lot of cultural subtext that
I mean, it still applies though, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why he changed a lot of things also while shooting and in post and all of that. He was telling in one of these interviews that he removed like a lot of scenes and stuff out of it.
From Almost
which were more direct. Yeah, which were direct allegory
I actually think there could be this would benefit from a bunch of scenes somewhere in the middle to enhance a lot of the character work.
I think the opposite. I think it probably runs for a few extra minutes. I still don't have a problem with that, but I don't have a problem with that precisely because it's a very moody film, right? It lures you in through the atmospheric its landscape and then throws you into its bleak, more cynical side in the latter half. Yeah. And I think
Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
That's what I was saying, what we talked about earlier, that Anurag Kashyap is one of those filmmakers that I would rather listen to than actively seek out his filmography, right? And I still haven't watched all of his films. I'm yet to watch No Smoking. And other than that, I think I watched most of his films. And I think he started to make this switch in his away from his trademark style, right? With one Marziya, because I think it's a sign of a very conscious filmmaker and a responsible filmmaker who realizes that before the state could intervene and impose any restrictions or something like that, censors on him, he actively started drifting away from his trademark style, quote unquote trademark style, and started incorporating stories more obliquely, right? And I think Almost Pyaar is definitely not one of his most accomplished films, but I genuinely think it's one of his most fascinating films and one of the better films that we have had from the liberal herd of filmmakers. And
I would,
again,
Aryan, I would agree with this for some reason. I know you like the film much more than much more than I do.
I was expecting Sanjeet to like it much more. I mean, I'm disappointed that he did not.
No, I
like it.
I like it more than.
I would just say before like Dhruv talks about it, I feel there are things that I really like in the film, but I feel it's just not compelling enough. It's not interesting. That's what I'd like to say. And it's not a criticism per se. It's just like as a viewer, I'm talking. I want to be engaged, number one.
I mean, it is a criticism if you're not engaged, but fine.
No, I'm not saying it's like I'm trying to say. I'm saying as a need for me as a viewer, I need to be engaged with by like compelling characters, situations. I feel he did a lot of surface level thing with like a lot of things like with the DJ guy in London when he plays that track for that music composer. That music composer felt like a caricature. Why would I be interested in him?
Yes.
You get it?
Like the whole the whole ugly mein jaise you go to this police station and you have like the whole situation.
Exactly. Like you see what kind of character that is. You put that character in an environment. And see, this is another thing. The second disclaimer of all things should be like, it is inevitable to not compare stuff from his previous film, which he actually genuinely liked.
Of course.
Because you kind of would, if not watch the same thing, you would expect something different, or better. Not something which we've been like accustomed to by like the genericness.
This is not, this is the whole, this brings me nicely into, so I'll tackle both whatever Aryan has said and what Sanjeet said is that the whole what Sanjeet is mentioning actually points to the fact that for me the first half is or maybe 3/4 of the film is too much of an Imtiaz Ali film, not an sort of combination and of Imtiaz Ali films that I don't like, particularly Love Ajkal, both the Love Ajkals, that is, I'm not just dumping on the Sara Ali Khan. That is that's worse, but both are pretty bad in my opinion. And this sort of borrows that sort of, I described this in writing it, that it feels like you're in a lecture of love rather than sort of feeling it. It's more like someone's there to tell you the meaning of love and all that, and I'm like, I don't really care if you tell me what the meaning is, but like it's trying to, like the whole DJ Mohabbat's inclusion is a bit like that. My point is that
is more patchwork, I felt.
Yeah, in the latter half, it becomes more of a cynical sort of, the cynical forces sort of take over the love story, and I feel that's where the film feels most comfortable, even though I feel the plotting of those sections is a bit weak. And I was actually reminded of Sandeep or Pinky Farrar in some sequences, and I thought how that film was able to use some of its settings and characters more to flesh out those people, to then impose that cynicism onto the whole narrative. And I think, so again, a lot of films sort of came to my mind when I was watching it. But what Aryan said, that this is genuinely fascinating as a film, I think it is. And I actually mean it in a sense where it is fascinating, unlike Bombay Velvet. I think Bombay Velvet is boring. Sorry, I'm like firing shots here, left, right, and center. But I do think that this is more fascinating from whatever it implies. Actually, a lot of the stuff that it implies, I really like where the film ends. I told Sanjeet this. I don't necessarily like how it ends there, but where it ends, I think, has a lot to do with how he's used the plotting to speak about a lot of the issues that he can't otherwise, in sort of explosive terms. Like the characters who die are from a certain community. They don't belong to, like, both of the characters who die in the film belong to a specific community. They don't belong to another community. Then, you get all these, and then the way he sometimes rhymes these stories with each other is nice. Like, that reminds me, I know we joked about this, but Kieślowski, does the rhyming business of parallel stories a lot. So this has little bits of
Yeah.
that. But then it also
No,
wants to
but
make a hardline connection, which is my problem also. So, but yeah,
sorry
go
to
ahead, sir.
interrupt, but like
Yeah.
Kashyap does this one thing very, like, not carefully, but like he's very good at it. Is doing like this duality of nature with
Yes.
characters.
Even Manmarji had that double
structure.
character, right?
Everything, like you see, like Manmarzia was that in a way.
Hmm.
Mukkabaz was that because it was duality of him being a boxer while also
Yes.
like his love story
Love
and the
story,
sports.
yes. Yeah.
Then Raman Raghav was again the
Yeah,
whole dual
that's
nature
clear
of
classic dual, yes. Yeah.
the same thing. Like
Yeah.
what else?
No smoking mein
Something
hoega
else
pakka.
also.
There's two
No
sides. No
smoking,
smoking
yes.
is probably abstract. only,
DFD
right?
also
So,
with Paro and Chanda becomes that.
yes.
So I'm saying like it's not something that he's new to it. It's
Yes.
something that he's always reveled in,
Yeah.
all the time. The whole
Yeah.
dual and One
Yeah.
Marzia was like just full of the whole dual nature of two characters and like contrast. I mean, here also he's playing a lot with contrast, but I feel the contrasts aren't dialed to 10. They're just dialed to like 5 or 4. I'm just being a little
But they
specific,
are, I
it's
think he's
not
trying to
credit.
suggest that they are similar, right? Like the fact that they are similar stories,
Correct.
just slightly
Correct.
tinted.
I think the dials over here, in fact, are dialed to 100 because for me, the reason why I am not, especially after my second watch, the reason that I'm not looking too much on face value over here from Almost Pyaar is because it is a celestial love story that's existing on a different realm. These characters, these stories aren't meant to be taken on face value, but they are existing as allegories on a much deeper level, right? And that's why on my first watch, again, spoilers for anyone who's not watched the film.
Who's interested
And
in watching
again,
it? It's out on Netflix right now, by the way.
And it's really heartbreaking because I barely got to watch this film during its theatrical release on the last day, and I think it was the last show before it got eventually thrown out of the theaters. And I was surrounded by like 4 or 5 people in the entire auditorium.
How did
even
they like
after
it?
dropping, I didn't.
Did they stay? Or did they?
Yeah, no one left.
Oh, no one left. Okay, that's good.
Lucky.
Or maybe I didn't notice because I had already.
Oh, you were too into the
festival
film
earlier.
Acha, okay.
Oh, that also. But you know how a film festival crowd is leaving every now and then.
I know, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Very annoying.
So thankfully, I got to watch the film in the theater, and it really bothers me that even after dropping on Netflix, it's not trending in India. And I really hope that more people watch it. And for that very reason, do you want me to like quickly summarize the film for anyone who's not watched it?
Yeah.
Yes,
because
go ahead.
I don't think that we have fully ruined it yet.
No, we do. No, I kind of ruined it, but yes. But anyways, go ahead, and then we will transition to Faraaz because we are short on time. Sorry for cramming stuff. Ashwani, you're there, right?
So for
just to enter the frame whenever I pitch that in. Okay. I don't think he is. Oh, he is. Yes.
Okay.
He's here.
Okay.
So Almost Pyaar. So
yes.
Movie revolves around 2 stories, one in Dalhousie, the other in London. The Dalhousie portion features a schoolgirl, Amrita, falling in love with a young, free-spirited man called Yaqub. In London, a rich girl of a Pakistani billionaire, Aisha, is smitten with an upcoming DJ Harmeet who rebuffs her. The segments run in parallel and on surface don't have any immediate connection except for one, DJ Mohabbat. And again, I think what you talked about through that getting a lot of didactic what is love, long portions of getting all of that from Vicky Kaushall's character, who is DJ Mohabbat, right? As the title suggests. But then again, for me, his character almost, you mentioned Kieslowski, right? For me,
I mean, I
this
mentioned
film
it
almost...
just to suggest the highest possible bar of this type of film.
I get it. But I think in terms of its structure and narrative, it almost represents a postmodern new wave Iranian film. Because the desires of our characters are literally as minimal as going to a musical concert and watching DJ Mohabbat live. And yet they are naive and oblivious to the reality of the political reality, the socio-political reality. That
I mean, some of them are, but not others aren't, right?
Not all
of them.
One of them is like purely blinded by her own privilege, right? She doesn't.
So we won't go into specifics because we are short on time, but there are lots of elements about all this, what you're talking about, that just feel like they are. You said I thought they could benefit with one or two more scenes. Like I genuinely thought they could flesh those portions out. But yes, but yeah, what you mean, I get. What
I
you
think fleshing these characters further would drop them off existing on these purely celestial level, as I said. That
No, yeah,
these
fair enough.
the ending also suggests that, right? On my first viewing, I told you right after the film ended that you would hate this one contrived choice, one decision that the film makes during its third act once it reaches its final frames. So spoilers, when the way Aisha ends up dying in that car crash, okay, it is extremely anticlimactic, but it works because the film has already set up its stakes. It has already made you aware of what kind of world these characters are existing in.
No, it works. It worked. That worked for me. Just saying. I mean, that didn't bother me. There's a bunch of other stuff that did bother me, like the whole thing where Sanjeet and me were discussing how the jail stuff was weird.
Oh, that seemed out of
nowhere.
And
but again, it's last thing that I really think that not a lot of people are appreciating is these subtle nuances and underlying tones in the script that making the second backdrop be that of London. England, a country that India was once a part of. And
yes, I mean,
especially on my second viewing, this just came across very strikingly to me when Yaqub mentions in passing that एक ज़माने में तो इंडिया भी इंग्लैंड में था. And in a way, it's so cheekily yet adroitly addressing that even though the laws and the systems and all these IPC laws or whatever are the same, okay, the sensibilities and the way of interpreting them is different. In one country, the politics of consent becomes a problem, okay, and in the other, the more troubling aspects and intolerant views of religious divide becomes a bigger issue. So I think that for these precise reasons,
people have seen, people who had to see. I mean, there are things that have happened. Like in London, you see dal chawal as like a thing. Here, you see noodles as a thing. So I mean,
they are flipped around. No, it's like a mirroring of two halves.
Exist on dichotomies.
Basically,
there are interesting things like those old parents, that old couple.
That's the whole section with Sandeep or Pinky. That kind of just reminded me of how that sort of tackled it better, in my opinion. But
So I mean, I'm just saying there are interesting things. All I'm saying is it just could have been more compelling. That's all.
Yeah. So now we shift to something that's far less interesting. Question mark.
And far less compelling.
Faraaz Hussain, Bangladesh ka Shehzada.
Please.
When everyone is gone, हमें याद रखा जाएगा.
इनको लगता है मासूम को मार के इनको blessings मिलते हैं.
अल्लाह इस्लाम के ठेकेदार बनते हैं बहन.
When you guys were discussing Almost Pyaar, I just had this question that how much of an effort from Kashyap's side is visible to know this generation, to understand this generation? Because he has mentioned it in a few interviews that constantly trying to understand his daughter because she is growing up, getting autonomous and shit. So
it's more observational only, but like window observation, not like living with them observation.
Yeah, it feels like did Aryan say, like it feels like someone who's 50.
This was my biggest dig at the film.
It's like feels like Aditya Chopra making Befikre also.
Exactly, and it clearly comes across, especially the first act and with the song choices like Netflix and chill. It clearly comes across as a film about a filmmaker who assumes and thinks that this is how the Gen Z might be in real life, right? This is how they might be talking.
But I think that kind of just
there are some interesting things also there. Like I didn't mention this, but like the whole Dalhousie section, I don't think it's a love story in like the typical sense.
Definitely, exactly.
It's more like friendship of two friends just going and watching, and it is being assumed by everyone else that it's a love story, and then
giving that.
So all those things are again interesting, but I just feel it's not again. whatever.
Now back to Faraaz, Ashwani.
Back to Faraaz.
You say first, because I think we three are very cruel on it. Yes, but go ahead. Yes.
I watched Faraaz at home only, and
okay, Netflix only, right? It released recently. It released
along with almost
Pyaar, yeah.
Again.
I don't know where to put its merit. Like, do I go by the intention? But then what the intention? I don't understand Faraaz, honestly. I don't understand the timing of it. I don't understand the urgency with which a filmmaker would be driven to tell this story. I mean, we are not residents of Bangladesh.
Yes.
So, okay, a human tragedy. Then again, I have always believed in a writer's, this immense power a writer holds when they make the choice of what they want to tell.
Giving him or her the benefit of it.
But I remember this one thing when I was watching the film. After I watched the film, I remember this one thing which Ashwani had said when we had discussed Mulk about how these filmmakers are looking at, let's say, a Muslim in a very binary way, good, bad. And that's basically what it turns out to be in the film also, right?
Yes.
And in the most skewed way, that's how they are looking at these people. And like saying, okay, this is a good way and this is a bad way. And like, how could you be the one?
Which in itself, my biggest problem with this approach is that this in itself is totally dialectical to the state's mechanism of creating these religious divides in the first place, right? And I think Ashwini has put it better even when we discussed Faraaz offline. I think this is the biggest. It's
so none of us
very
likes
honestly, it's very
why this is a centerpiece of discussion. Okay.
And the thing is that it bothers me even more because this is the same issue that I have with films such as The Women King, Women Talking.
Women Talking. I'm just mentioning
Women Talking. I mean, Women Talking is genuinely it's not a bad film. It's a good film, I would say, but still, this is the underlying issue of all these films, and it becomes blatantly aware for us that these are reverse engineered movies that the filmmaker approaches with the intention of giving out and putting out a very didactic message, and then the story only comes secondary to all of that.
Understood. I understand what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
If you are if as a quote unquote liberal filmmaker, you are actively using this medium as a way of evoking a change in the society, then the history of cinema tells us that stories work on that level. Stories evoke that change. They cause that revolution. They cause that resistance to stand up.
Yeah.
These reverse engineered films, they don't work. Okay. And I think at this point, this might sound very harsh, but it just seems like these 2-3 filmmakers are only making films to impress each other and then mention their names at the start of each film by acknowledging each other. And this is how it appears at this point. Because if you're not willing to bypass your own quote unquote target audience and evoke those emotions into a wider conscience, it's not going to change anything. In fact, it's further going to polarize people.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this is I don't know what to add really, but Ashwani, go ahead. I promise that I won't say much about Faraaz, but go ahead, Ashwani.
No, it's quite interesting how Aryan mentioned that these 3 filmmakers are working to impress each other, because if you watch Kashyap's interview with Sandesh Bhatia, he says that the FTI graduates are not making films for the audience, are not making films for the directors. They are only making films for their classmates.
Yeah.
Impress each other. Now we all know these liberal filmmakers who are trying to change the Bollywood filmmaking. Hansal, Mehta, and Sinha and Kashyap included.
Yeah. Yes.
Zoya Akhtar. So this Motwane, they are working with very liberal sensibilities, and they have their share of hits and misses. But I mean, even for Kashyap, nobody has gone, fully radical.
Yeah.
It's it's a compromise. Every time they come up with a movie, it's a compromise. Maybe Mehta went radical in Shahid Azmi's biopic, and Kashyap a bit in. No, I don't remember Kashyap going that radical, and Sinha
Black
went.
Friday? Question
Yeah,
mark.
but then
This is all like I'm asking. I have no sort of. I watched it a long while back.
The thing with Kashyap is that Kashyap ka reference point is Kashyap himself, na. So Kashyap is radical more than Mehta or Sinha already.
Okay, got it. Yes. Understood. Yes.
He's been radical longer than Mehta or Sinha. That's
yeah.
Gulal was his radical most.
Yes, Gulal, right?
Definitely,
yeah.
So, with respect to Faraaz, not just that the didacticism, I was also concerned about the arguments made, because there is a scene, spoilers now, there is a
spoilers.
scene in which,
I mean, Smith to spoilers, he's like it's a real life incident, so that doesn't really,
So there is a scene in which this perpetrator of the person, the terrorist, he gives.
Libras, is it the main one?
Libras,
yeah.
He tries to make an argument why he's doing it to Faraaz himself, and he lists a lot of atrocities that are happening around women. So he's kind of positioning his act as contextualizing his act based on all these things happening around the world. The marginalization of Muslims in China in the concentration camps, or in India, the Babri Masjid and things.
Yes.
So I got concerned about the fact that it will trend on Netflix by virtue of algorithm. My father will sit and watch, and a lot of fathers will sit and watch. Their first thought would be that not only that these people, the propagandist narrative that these people are driven by violence, but also the fact that everything that is happening and everything that they are receiving right now, they will come back with violence.
Exactly.
So the people who already hate them will now also be scared, and
it would be reinforced.
Yeah. I don't think it's the argument that it is trying to make. I don't know. I think if I even say that it's trying to make this argument, I'm giving liberty to Hansal Mehta. I'm sure intentionality is there. Okay, he does not intend to criminalize Muslims, but when you look at the timing of this film under this right-wing regime that we have, I think it cannot have that effect. It's going to go on the opposite direction altogether. Especially it got released somewhere around Ram Navami, and Hanuman Jayanti is, I guess, approaching. We all know what has happened on Ram Navami. Has been happening on Ram Navami for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
When I first watched Faraaz, I gave it a very I gave the filmmaker probably a benefit of a doubt by pretending that not a lot of people in India would even tune into the film. And this is what I wrote, that the filmmaking feels responsible yet imprudent at the same time. And what one brings to the movie would eventually also inform their takeaway from it, right? And then
but that's a problem, right? I guess
it is a problem. It is a problem, and
in this type of film, not in any type of film, but like in this type of film, which is
exactly. And at the same time, I was probably not thinking that anyone would even bother to tune into this film, because even I couldn't watch it in the theater when it released, the limited 1 week run that it did have in the theater. And just yesterday, when I was scrolling through Netflix, I saw that it's trending on #1 in India, and I was even more annoyed, because we, as prominent watchers of film, or whatever, adamant film geeks or film lovers, whatever you want to call
cinephiles. Let's just say that.
But okay. So we, as active film watchers, even we did not appreciate the film, for what it was going at. Now, not everyone is going to tune into a film by having a proper catalog of what the director has made previously, what his intentions are, what his political views, and whether he's a liberal or a conservative filmmaker or whatever, right? And let's just take one scene, for instance, that we get by the end of Faraaz. Again, spoilers. So after after the event, after the horrifying night has come to an end, we watch the dead bodies of people being taken out, okay? And then we get a brief scene of this Hindu rituals where people are standing and praying for their loved ones, okay? And there's this crowd of extremist Hindus standing in the background of these radical men chanting that let's bring justice or whatever, right? And they are raising these loud extremist radical slogans. Now, my biggest issue is a lot of people are going to watch that and be like, "Sahi to bola, kya galat hai?" Dekho.
Although this same guy who lost his daughter, he to be disturbed about. So this is a very subtle thing. So I like Aryan is mentioning. I am wondering that there is the action is so on your face, but the reaction to it is so subtle. As a cinephile or as a watcher, how will you notice that subtlety? Obviously, your senses will register the action with a greater force, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a great point. I think it's. I mean, the reason I decided to not say much about the film is because I messaged Aryan and Sanjeet saying that this is like basically the type of film that just doesn't work for me by design. Like the idea of recreating an incident which has happened in 2016 very recently and deciding to make a film about that incident itself. And so I prefer approaches which are more oblique, I guess, more that look at the aftermath, like it happened with Mass in two years back. Of course, different.
Exactly.
Yes, Trial by Fire, which is very different sort of approaches to you get different. You get all these things, and I think I don't understand what I have gained from watching this, and I don't think it's a film which is entertaining or made for entertainment purposes in any case.
That's the big question. Who is this film for actually at the end?
Exactly.
Because apparently
even a lot of real life, if I'm not wrong, a couple of real life people who were affected and were a part of the tragedy, their families actually petitioned against this film's release. Right. And the High Court in Delhi or somewhere overruled it and still went ahead with the release. And again, the more I think about this, the more it bothers me that the film doesn't know what target audience it is aiming at. Okay, probably it won't even reach that audience.
I suppose it's to do with the people who are not aware of what this incident is at all. I feel that's
but at the same time, I use the word imprudent very consciously because it's taking a recent incident, a recent communal incident, and then turning it very obtusely into this very binary thing. And then reinforcing the same message home about a good Muslim and bad Muslim, and
which is interesting because Anubhav Sinha is a co-producer on this, and we had discussed Mulk, and Mulk has
the main producer. It is Banaras Productions.
But Faraaz from other films is that it's good Muslim, bad Muslim narrative is not meant for Hindus. It is meant for Muslims only.
Yes.
It's like it is trying to tell the Muslims that you have to be like Faraaz. You don't have to be like this.
But can I ask this? Who is Faraaz? That's the other thing. That's that's the other big problem I have. Apart from being this ideal, who is Faraaz? Like, I know that's the title of the film, but I almost feel Hansal Mehta is not as interested in the main character, and he's interested in the radicalized
what he represents.
No. I think he's more interested in the radicalized Muslims.
For me, it was more about what he represents because he's coming from this very affluent family, upper crust of the Bangladeshi socio-political regime, right? And then he's making an example in front of this very extremist guy. Clearly,
I was reading up on this, but all of them belong to upper crust society, like at least Nibras.
I don't think so. I think
Nibras did.
And that's very
and one or two more people did, which it's not explored. So I was like, is there a thing about the whole class thing? But the film is sort of like
I think again are saying, because if you you were seeing that you don't know what you gained from the film, and that's the problem, because if you read the Wikipedia page of the incident and you watch the film, it feels the same. It's just informative that this happened.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, not even correctly informative, it seems like, because in some cases, and that makes which
although with all the criticism that we are talking about, I feel I did like some elements though in it though.
I mean, it's not totally terrible.
It's also tense, right? It's relatively very.
The opening, I thought the 35 minutes, I think, are pretty tense.
Yeah.
Even the whole thing with the cop and all of that, I really like that. When the other cops come and they prepare everything and then they aren't allowed to do anything.
I was not.
You know what? That reminded me of the entire scene from Ugly, the police station scene from Ugly, because in a way, it is also representing in a very cheeky way the malfunctioning, dysfunctioning of
slightly satirical.
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought that totally jarred tonally, for me at least. I was like, why are we here?
Not just you, with others also. Not just you. Someone else also told me the same thing, but I kind of like that portion more than anything else personally.
So again, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, a lot of this from the very outset only, I'm like on the other side of it. So I don't really want to, like, I'm sure there's an audience for this, for this, which for which it was.
No, I think.
But but yeah, I
again,
felt.
I get.
I genuinely
if you've
think
been
that
on Twitter,
even the film is not trying to marry itself or halfly dedicate itself to the actual event, right? Because even the name of the film, and this is why to be very honest, I don't have a problem with the character of Faraaz not being the prominent face in the film, because even the name of the film, Faraaz, I think even that plays purely symbolically, because after all of what happened over the course of that one horrifying night, Faraaz is the takeaway, and it should be the takeaway.
But it's not. I mean, that's my problem. When I watched the film, that wasn't my takeaway.
Of course it's not. Of course it's not. But the name of the film, that's what I meant. The name of the film, naming your film.
But it's so weird, no? Yeah, like if you're making a super like realist narrative recounting the power, like this evident, but then you have characters who are symbolic representations. That's a very odd like clash. What even Ashwani was saying, like there's an odd clash in between, the whole idea of these two separate films almost trying to exist together, the forceful action and the subtle reaction, what Ashwani was saying, sort of plays into that also. Yeah, it was just a very odd. I mean, I wouldn't have watched it, honestly. If we weren't recording, I wouldn't have watched it, just because it just doesn't appeal, I suppose. And the good
realist though. How do we understand realism in cinema? It's a different discussion altogether.
Of course, yes. The idea, I feel the way the film was shot, I thought was going more for something that's not action. So that's what I was saying. Like it doesn't feel like it's made for entertainment, which is a good thing. Because these things shouldn't be for entertainment.
Who's the guy who made Born Ultimatum?
I was about to say it's a very Paul Greengrass treatment of this sort of
like United 93. Right?
No, Captain Phillips is the one I thought, where you do the parallel between two people, the person who's about to commit. But I think that film commits to it much more. The parallel.
That film wasn't exploitative.
I was thinking of United 93 in terms of what the situation was, and you just do it.
It also does,
what you know, instead of constructing a lot of contrived way of coming to that, like what Aryan said, right?
I was also I'm not sure, like, were you put off by
ending to that?
There were also some scenes where I was just put off, and this is probably just I've become a snowflake, I guess, in this sense. But there are scenes.
Melodrama.
No, not melodrama, but like there's just this scene where someone's shot and the camera just is there, like lingering at the dead body, and I'm like, we don't know anything about these people. What is, like, why are we here? Like, what have we achieved on sticking around to that image? There's this one moment. So I decided not to speak about it, and now you've started me off about Faraaz. But no, there's this one moment where someone's taking a photo or a video, and the way the film is shot in that sequence bothered me so much. I was like, why have you decided to shoot it this way? Like, there were so many other ways, and there's kind of this in Bheed, which we'll get to, and Sanjeet will not get to because he's not watched it.
Bother you go into the real life event, because I tried to look into this account whether they got hostage and projected him as a
Yes.
terrorist, but I
Yeah.
couldn't find any real incident that can substantiate it. So it's a cinematic liberty they have taken.
That's some liberty
Now,
then, because that doesn't work for me at all.
yeah, why do you take that liberty? That is another question. Why?
The whole weird
how are
thing.
you? And you know,
It's very
in cinema, reality is anyway created. So now when you are creating reality, the least you can do is to not have the focus on, very specific things, because then it's a drama.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Hotel Mumbai in that regard.
I was same.
Yeah. And I don't remember in Hotel Mumbai, apart from the people who were trapped inside the hotel, it was very
contained.
It was not actually trying to make any argument. It was actually about the tragedy that happened.
It was very subjective also.
I mean,
very objective.
I thought it was a little too action filmy, whatever. For which I'm just like, then why don't you just make an actual like, you don't need the setting of India if you're just not going to do anything with it.
I was saying it's not a great film. It's just better film.
I agree with you.
At least it had a very simple vision.
Yeah, it didn't want to make a point, I think, about anything except for tell a story. I think this wants to make a point and tell a story, and that's a bit whatever.
For me,
good performance, by the way, by
Aditya Rawal.
Yes,
main terrorist.
Yes,
Paresh Rawal's son.
He's good, and even this Kapoor, I guess.
No, he was good. He was just not given
the guy.
anything.
He was good, yeah.
Yeah, he was nice.
Yeah.
But I think Ashwani would back me up on this, and he would agree to a certain extent, because what I feel, even when Dhruv was saying that why focus and why linger on graphic shots, for far too long, I never thought I would say this, but the problem with most of these recent films from liberal filmmakers is that it's purely coming out of a reactionary place against these right-wing films, against, dare I say it, propaganda films sponsored by the state. And this does not work. A reactionary approach to a story and then going ahead and exploiting a real life incident and turning it again into a binary thing. I think if this is the least, this is the most that liberal filmmakers today in India can do to bypass the censors, then I'm sorry, I really don't have any hope or expectations from.
No, you go ahead. I'm to this type of film. I've realized how less the more I kind of have watched stuff, the less
it's purely reactionary. It's genuinely purely reactionary, because you see a certain film from last year that emphasized so much on violence and grotesque graphics, which earned crores of rupees, and got a lot of support.
Film.
Yeah, so this film clearly seems reactionary to those kinds of films, and that's not how storytelling works. And if you're even if your intentions are right, this is not how you approach these subjects. And I'm sorry, but it just makes me more pessimistic about the future of Indian films.
The greatest danger of this film or these type of films is that a person who's making it thinks in the way that, in India, there is a certain section which is a minority. In Bangladesh or Pakistan, the minorities are very much marginalized and persecuted. So we don't want to become like that. So these liberal thinkers are working like that. But they don't realize that, because I'm speaking from my personal experience talking to people who are right-wingers. The whole argument is based on that only, what these minorities who are majority in other nations are doing. That's why we have to be extra careful, and they justify the persecution here. So, point that these liberal filmmakers are trying to making is null. It's not working. It's having the reverse effect.
Yeah.
And which is why I said, wrote in my little piece that it's kind of ironical that Faraz's own journey, apart from what eventual unfortunate fate that he met, apart from that, his journey and his realization is almost on par with a lot of these liberal filmmakers who coming out of a very privileged space are still not able to look at the actual reality of how overall these films that they make and the Indian films are being perceived by the majority. And this disconnect is further reinforced and emphasized in their own films.
Yeah. I mean, so Sanjeet has said that he has to leave, so I will allow him to leave. And maybe that's a good sign for us to leave Faraaz behind also, isn't it?
Thank you. See you.
So yes. Thank you, Sanjeet. He's not seen Bheed. Please do when it comes online, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though we have
take care.
Bye. Thank you. Now we move on to Bheed with one less person, ironically.
24 मार्च एक ऐसा ऐतिहासिक दिन जब देश में लॉकडाउन घोषित हुआ था।
न्याय हमेशा ताकतवर के हाथ में होता है शर्मा जी। अगर कमजोर के हाथ में न्याय दे दिया जाए ना तो न्याय अलग होगा।
They're shutting down all the state borders, बेटा।
बॉर्डर बन गया है अपने ही देश के अंदर।
एक दिन अचानक इन लोगों को पता चला कि इनके घर वहाँ है ही नहीं जहाँ ये अब तक रहते आए।
यहाँ हमारे औकात का बाउंड्री लाइन सेट कर दिया गया है। जमीन पर एक बिस्तर डाल दिया गया है जिसपे हमारे माँ बाबूजी दोनों अपना अपना करोना लेके लेटेंगे। बच गए तो हमारे, नहीं बचे तो प्लास्टिक में लपेट के फूंक दिए जाएंगे।
You guys go ahead first. I have so much to say about Bheed. That was supposed to be a main center of discussion, but now it's the third one. Yes, go ahead. Who's starting? Ashwani, we'll start with you.
So one thing is very clear to me is that it's his most angry film. Maybe he felt something personal about everything that happened, everything that transpired, and he is actively blaming the state. And even after all the cuts, it still seems that, okay, he is very, very clear about who he has to blame, which is one thing that I really like about Bheed. Like, and I have mentioned in my review also that how this time Sinha escaped the very big, problem that earlier films had. Him bringing a character not from a privileged background.
The
the
Article 15 problem.
The representation is faulty, but like this is again the stepping stone for him, I guess. I'm not so sure how he has to do it later on. I will not advocate that he continues representing people he does not understand, though. That is a discussion that I had with one of my friends also, like I was mentioning, because have changed, and it is still sorts of it seems like the upper caste people still are understanding the marginalized people from a lens of having the Savarna guilt and pity and the sentiment that look how hard it is for them. Which is all, but I guess
even that is coming from a condescending place, right?
Right, and I'm saying this because I have reservations against the final scene, the climax. That was not at all. I mean,
I've forgotten
that
the
was
climax.
not right.
What was the climax? I watched for a while.
Where he dials up the police officer, the cop, and tells him that strip off all your power and do what you think is right.
Okay.
That is
the entire subplot revolving Pankaj Kapoor character. That's what was released.
This Pankaj Kapoor character going into the mall to, get
the action film
big
section.
Matter is
almost.
into his own hands.
The action film section of Bheed. So I think that I really like the assortment of characters this time, and it's very interesting, and Sinha has done it before also in Thappad. Like he got people from different classes, although his focus was still on Taapsee Pannu's character, and the subplots were only suggestive. They were not explored fully. Here they are working parallelly, and they are and different folks, even though Rajkumar Rao is our protagonist. So that part, I don't know what to say about the color palette though.
No, there's lots of interesting things I feel about that color palette. I mean, it's an interesting type of choice. I feel like sometimes, like when I watched it, firstly, black and white, it's unique to watch a Hindi black and white film now. I feel just because it's like there's a uniqueness to that.
That too one based on a very recent incident, right? Again.
Yes, exactly. I mean, but he said that he wanted to evoke the parallel with Partition, which I was like, okay, I mean, I didn't think that that's the reason
again
why
a very
he chose
Anubhav Sinha.
Yeah, this is the whole conflation of like lots of like I know past and present are connected in some way or the other, but like just conflate, like using a color palette to conflate to the. I thought it did an interesting thing of just allowing, you know, color helps you like spot different parts, and this sort of allowed it to give a whole a unique sense of to like the Bheed part, you know, the togetherness. You know, you can't spot people
exactly
individually. That was interesting.
It robs people out of their own privilege and throws them into the same helpless situation, right? Irrespective of their caste and you know, the best thing that I found about Bheed is that it's surprisingly very restrained and subtle in terms of what it's trying to say, despite giant poster banners that read Lotus Civilization.
So we discussed this, Aryan. I don't think unsubtlety I don't think unsubtlety is a bad thing. A lot of political cinema operates on didacticism, I think, or at least whatever I've read about it. Like I know we discussed, like even black filmmakers, a lot of them do it, and there's a recent film which I watched yesterday, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is basically all didacticism in some ways. So all like those principles aren't wrong. I just think that there's a way in which sometimes you can approach it which works better than others. And I think I guess I'm a little lower on Bheed than you guys are. I guess so. I think I again appreciate it on several levels. I think there's certain elements of it that really did work for me. I do kind of wish, and I know there is a limitation, as Ashwini suggested, even in sort of you're going back to Mulk Article 15, and Thappad I still think is the crowning achievement of his career until now. I think that those films use a singular incident and then sort of they are ripples. I feel like it's a ripple effect almost. One incident happens and everyone across sort of how everyone reacts to it. This and Anek, Bheed and Anek, I feel are almost like what Ashwini kind of mentioned, the parallel idea, this idea that the situation is too big and it seems like he wants to capture everything. There is that one incident, of course, here, the migration, like COVID is sort of the backdrop, and I think this benefits much more than Anek in the sense that it's restricted to one location largely. But I do feel that he often tries to do service to a lot of things, and then in that process he undercuts some of them, and I found my engagement with the film fairly patchy. So I think that's my sort of reservation with it. But I feel, but after watching Faraaz, I actually had one of those. I actually really think there's something good about Anubhav Sinha's approach here, and I feel he's making a film which would be better suited as a television series than a film, because I feel it's expansive. If you give him more time and material, money, I don't know who will give it to him, so I don't know.
Even if anyone does, it won't get released.
But I think this is the type of film that would benefit from that. Like, I think if you expand the canvas, he would expand it, versus something like Faraaz, which I think doesn't have the material to even accommodate it when, it feels like it's in itself in any case. And I feel I appreciated that aspect of Bheed more on retrospectively. But yeah, we'll get into specifics about Bheed, because I think that I honestly think this is the most interesting of the three films that we had talked about, though I can understand why Almost Pyaar can also fit into that category. But no, go ahead, guys. I'm curious about specifics from you guys. What do you, and we'll spoil it. It's unfortunately not out online, but soon enough it will be. But yeah, things you like, things you didn't, things you liked most, I guess, the best place to start. Aryan, you can start, and then.
So unlike Ashwini, we even discussed this when the film came out. I read his review that he put out right when the film came out, and we discussed this offline. And I actually love how the film approached Trivedi's characters, who is played by Pankaj Kapoor, because again, it brings me back to these subtle nuances in the script that out of all these characters who are having a clear setback, okay, out of these families who are seeing their children like literally cry and agitate in hunger, out of all of those characters filled in buses, why does Pankaj Kapoor Trivedi have the audacity to even approach head on with the authority, with the police, and not even that, but actually end up entering the mall and taking matters into his own hands with an actual gun, okay? Because it is in itself coming out of a very condescending place that, oh, how is this happening to me? Let me take the chance. Let me do what I've always been taught to do.
So caste, I think the whole caste angle is there also, right?
Yeah, the caste angle. And even in the end, I know that, and it's a very, very valid criticism. And even I thought about it very deeply. But again, when Ashwini said that the ending did not work for him, again, I can totally see it. And I know that Anubhav Sinha has those, he has been criticized for it even in the past. And even I have my reservations with his earlier films, especially Anik. But the ending of Bheed I loved because, spoilers, but even after Rajkumar Rao's character willingly lets him go by breaking the cycle, okay, by not, despite acknowledging that he is the person who, he's the type of person that he's always been ostracized by, okay, that he's always felt oppressed by. Even after letting him go and giving him the second chance, Trivedi's character retains his own pride and ego. And
it's
he
not
slurs
changed.
at him. Yeah. He is unchanged. Okay, his character goes unchanged throughout the film. And I know how problematic that can be. That, oh, this in a way is Anubhav Sinha showing and saying that despite all the despicable things that these kind of characters do, they won't have any consequences. At the same time, I think that is the reality of India today, and I think that's been the reality of India since forever. And I think that just acknowledging that he retains his characteristic trait even by the end, when he has to let go of the motorcycle and stand in the middle of the road. That one scene says a lot about Anubhav Sinha's own acknowledgement of the reality of India today. And oh my God, the last scene, including Pankaj Kapoor, when he's facing who's
Aditya
the
Srivastav, right?
Aditya. Oh, amazing! Obviously,
the
OG cop.
Yes,
And
CID.
That scene where he first, the more I think about this scene, the more I love it, because he's addressed on phone, right, by Ashutosh Rana's character.
Yes.
That sir ने ऐसा बोला है कि जो
सारी
भी
power
आपका power है उतार के जो भी what you think is right, do that, okay.
That's capital.
And right before that, he's the Pankaj Kapoor's character Trivedi asks him that अगर पैसा ना होता तो मार देते मुझे, क्या करते. And then after he's being informed over the phone, he puts down the phone and he's like, कितने पैसे. So that in itself says how primitive our instincts tend to be, and how those primitive instincts get even amplified with a situation as dire as the pandemic, as the lockdown. And I think one of our friends has this very blatant criticism regarding Bheed, that I won't watch this because it is too soon. Again, I genuinely think a lot of people don't get this. A lot of the people who probably won't even care to watch the film, unfortunately, won't realize that Bheed is primarily not a film about the lockdown. It uses the lockdown as a backdrop to tell the deeply inherent caste slurs and systemic
I mean, a lot. I
problems
feel
in our society, right?
No, I agree, but I think what you were, sorry, Ashwini, you can go after this. No, I was saying that the only thing I was mentioning is that it's not just caste, though, of course, which is the whole, this is the whole problem, I feel, in many senses, where you get with the issues/issues-based film. This feels like a issues-based film, but it's restricted to that 1 hour 52-minute runtime where it's still trying to do so that's my sort of big, like, it's not just about caste, there's a whole thing about class going on, which
But
I think
that's when the restrictive time, the backdrop of the film comes in, right? That it basically takes place.
Okay, fair enough, I understand
day.
what you mean, but I still think that there are places where it feels like it's trying to push so many buttons, which is fair enough, that's what his thing is. But like it again, I said that I didn't feel sometimes that it organically shifted from, it's a hard thing to do.
I think this issue that you have gets more amplified with the entire journalist wala subplot.
We will get to that.
Yeah.
Ashwini,
go ahead, Ashwini.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the climax, I think I was more concerned about how Rajkumar Rao reacts to Trivedi's last assertion. Now, that was actually true to a great extent, because trauma leads to social anxiety, and this trauma is historical. So, and the anxiety is collective. It cannot go in a matter of a generation. It will take a lot of time, which a lot of upper caste people don't understand. And it's great that Sinha somehow understood it, or somehow, even if he borrowed it, even if it is derivative knowledge, he used it. But then after the reaction Rao gives, he, runs and he goes into the mall. He removes his uniform and he submits. Now that submission itself was quite problematic. And I mean, I felt a little bit awkward because when he's submitting, he's not submitting to the oppressor who is in distress. He's submitting to oppression itself. And this is one thing that I mentioned, is that a lot of people who are like a political voice now, who come from a marginalized community and who understand that they have been marginalized for these 3,000 years, right? They are inherently kind to the oppressors because they understand that the oppressors can change, because they share the society with them, right? They are not hateful against the oppressor itself. They are hateful against the oppression. Now, so their kindness is also for the oppressor, not the oppression.
Yes.
The problem here is that Rajkumar Rao's kindness sort of looks it's for the oppression, because there was no reason for him to submit like that. There was no reason for him to convincing or negotiation could have taken a lot of routes. This was not the route which he removes his uniform to sort of remove the class barrier that exists between them due to their professions, which is what he's removing the class barrier, and he's lying before him naked, and now the caste barrier has not been removed, so he simply sticks to the that beam and says ki, you can beat me if you want to, tie me to this beam right now, which is where I felt it went wrong, and I felt a bit awkward. I could not verbalize it. When I had the discussion with my friend, I had better words to put it, because I was feeling a bit, that was my concern. And again, like I was saying, that what Sinha is doing with the Trivedi character is great, because I know I come from a family who's an upper caste Brahmin family, so I know. I mean, for myself also, I know how a Brahmin mind can operate. It's very ignorant, and caste never leaves. So, and especially for upper caste people, it does not leave them, because even the the people functioning in the urban spaces, the students themselves, for them, caste is very fancy. So, and it does not leave you. It is always there, and you are because if you see how Trivedi is asserting his rights. Even though he's coming from a marginalized class, he is not up in the class, but he is still asserting what he seems rightful to him. And like Aryan was mentioning, why is this character out of the entire bus is so vocal, right? because a lot of privilege he has borrowed from the caste, because caste provides him immunity to a lot of things, right? And the first opportunity that he gets, he asserts it in a rather violent way. He asserts that, which is a great thing, which is like, I think,
great character.
Yeah, and this is where I guess Sinha is right, because he understands Trivedi, because Sinha himself is a Brahmin, you know, and that is exactly where he fails with the Rajkumar Rao character. He does not
So
understand
you
it.
think,
So,
Ashwani, this story would be much better suited if it was like stuck to those people, or like stuck to the Pankaj Tripathi character? Like if it was just told from that perspective, like I'm curious. I'm just wondering myself. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, antagonizing your protagonist is something that people mostly shy away from. Like, you know, even in because then again, your protagonist is the antagonist, right? You have to shift your focus from Rajkumar Rao to Pankaj Kapoor. That would have been an interesting twist.
Pankaj Kapoor. Why am I saying Pankaj Tripathi? Sorry.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
film
sorry.
would start with Kapoor, and when he reaches the border post, then only Rajkumar Rao enters. I think it would have been interesting. I don't know how that would have looked, but in my head it is interesting because Benegal did that in Ankur. If you have watched the film,
I haven't seen Ankur, but yes.
Brahmin protagonist, you know.
Okay.
It was essentially about Shabana Azmi's character. The case was through the Brahmin character of Anant Nag.
Okay.
So,
and so it's like a self-critical, or not self-critical, but whatever. Like the protagonist is complicated.
It is reflexive, and it also kind of prevents you from assuming things about people you don't know.
So it's like acknowledging your limitation as a perspective, like as a filmmaker also, or like whatever your perspective can be, right? It's not like assuming that this is the reality and sort of like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also in the last sequence, when Pankaj Kapoor takes out the money, and that entire dialogue that happens between him and Adesh is his name. I don't know.
Aditya Srivastav is the character, but I mean, sorry, the actor. The character's name,
He says that Pankaj Kapoor says that paisa nahi hota to maar. Now it's very interesting. Okay, but like, you know what? It has this implicit argument that breaking the class barrier can allow you to rise above your caste, baggages also. It is implied that money has a very dominating force, and it can remove everything. Now money is guiding everything, because this character has money. He is living.
Yeah.
You know, he's alive. Now my question is, why were they after him? They had to. Ashutosh Rana ordered that kill him and declare him an Naxalite, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How many Brahmins in the history of post-independent India have been killed like this? Brahmins are leading. Even the Maoist movement is led in many places by Brahmins only. You find these leaders everywhere, because Brahmins have a hegemonic presence, right? But how many get killed? The killing part, the violence only happens to the people, the masses, the Bahujan people.
Yeah. Who dies? Like, I'm trying to think who dies in the film now. Does anyone die?
No one dies actually. My concern is that it seems sort of detached from the reality. The easiness with Ashutosh Rana, who himself is coming from a marginalized background, gives an order that kills the Brahmin, and we'll declare Naxalite. There are no political implications to that, right? And okay, then it's happening, and when it does not happen, because he had money, whatever he had. So it kind of implicates money to be an all-consuming force, like.
But that's negated in the other one, no? Like the parallel track, you remember, which is a track which I really liked actually, but I think is underdeveloped. Is the Tia Mirza and
it is very, yeah.
You know, to what Ashwani said that using the term and tossing around terms like Naxalite here and there, and it seemed very detached. Again, I think that because, and I think this applies to Rajkumar Rao's Tika's character as well to a certain extent, that a lot of the subtext that it's actually taking place, these events are taking place during a time when these cops, these underpaid cops are under immense stress and obligations, right? They have to meet these obligations that they have to maintain law and order, right? And even they don't know how tomorrow would turn out to be like in the middle of a pandemic. And I think Rahul Desai's review gets at this extremely well, and I genuinely think it's one of the best reviews that I've read in a recent while. And I just searched it up, and this is what he wrote. Okay, quote. Surya's boss and bitter rival, which means Aditya Srivastava's character, say the term Naxalite like it isn't part of their personal vocabulary. You can sense that their language is a coping mechanism or tool to rationalize the pain of being underpaid puppets. So I think a lot of these instinctive, as I said earlier, a lot of these instinctive and primitive traits just resurface because of these troubled times that they're in. And that's the
so like basically
main
trying
point
to
that-
assert almost a sense of power
Exactly.
because
Wherever
it's-
they
because
can,
you feel
wherever they
powerless.
can.
Got it.
Wherever they can, right? And that's the point that the film's ending is trying to make, that for a moment, as an audience, as a person of a privileged class, just for a moment, rob yourself off of all the agency and power that you have, and then think rationally. Just question then that what do you think is the problem with our society today? What are you doing that is morally against the society? Okay. And that's what I think Anubhav Sinha is getting at. And I think there's the scene that actually broke me. And to be very honest, it's the only scene that's moved me to that extent from Bheed. It's where the character of who's the actress who usually pops up in all Anubhav Sinha films.
Diya Mirza.
Diya Mirza, yeah. When
she's in only
lashes
two
out
of
at
them
his-
or three of two of them.
No, three.
Yeah.
Three, I guess.
Are you sure it's Diya Mirza or it's someone else I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
no, Diya Mirza.
Okay.
So when she lashes out at her driver, okay.
Yes. Okay.
And when in reality he's the one who's actually gets down, and it's again very reminiscent of that one scene from Article 15 where he actually gets into the mud and gets his own white clothes dirty to help save this girl and father cross the river or lake, whatever. And she's the one lashing out at him and calling him names and saying that he's irresponsible and he doesn't care. And that scene where the driver just walks up to her and he tells her that I'm here for you. That I came all this way for you. That one scene, oh my god. I think
So I think
that's
that track is very interesting. I just think it's underdeveloped. I just think it needs more runtime and it needs more a dynamic between them. But again, this goes. I mean, we'll get to the journalist angle because we have to talk about it. But
Diya Mirza everywhere. Like it was underdeveloped in Thappad also.
But I think in that it was again I told like my thing is that in that it still feels like one person's story, but it's expanding almost with every sort of like I still remember the opening of Thappad is so lovely in the sense that how it tracks how a story can be divided into a societal sort of thing. Where I mean, I was sort of thinking about how the opening for this is actually really. That's my big issue actually. And now I remembered, I really didn't like the opening of Bheed. I really thought it was going to be going to a place where I really was not going to like the film, but I was put off by the opening a lot. I thought it was. I don't know how to describe it actually. It was really.
To be very honest, very honest, I thought that the opening was chilling in the worst way possible.
Okay.
But I think at the same time, it also came across that way because a lot of the subtext is just removed. It is just blatantly removed, and I did not even read up to this until I ended up watching the film, and that's when I turned to my father before even knowing that this was the case. That I turned up to him and I told him that even in the end credits, the censor board has probably intervened and changed a lot.
There was a lot of stuff before that opening. You mean?
Because it's definitely.
Are you sure?
There was supposed to be a voiceover which was completely taken out. And again, I think I just might as well quote Rahul Desai on this, because again, not just to be on the safer side of the end, but I think he does a great job at articulating this into words that even when the controversial quote, even when the controversial partition line is muted, the sudden silence in the auditorium raises even more awareness about the weight of these words. The gag ironically reflects the core theme of Bheed, a movie that's all about cries falling on deaf ears.
Oh no, I don't. No, I'm not referencing that speech or anything about the cutting that.
No, but it was
even
supposed
before
to be
that,
at the beginning.
the one where you see it as a horror movie.
The track, right? Yeah.
The train tracks. I was like,
track,
yeah, and that kind of ticked me off in the wrong way. I was just a bit like, because I think this is what I think the art, a lot of the things was like, where I know the story is often positioned as something which is about the marginalized workers who are going who are trapped in a sense by their own country, and they're sort of lost. The whole thing where you have borders but you have no home. There's a variation of this line by Pankaj Kapoor, said by Pankaj Kapoor, I think at one point. I often felt that they got sidelined sometimes in their own film or a film about them, and I felt that was odd, very odd. I felt the more underdeveloped track than the Diya Mirza one and the journalistic one was the one with the girl who finds a way every time, who will find a way somehow, because she has always found a way. And I thought that was really underdeveloped, and I thought it felt very inserted. And I don't know, like what do you guys think? Maybe I was overthinking about this element more than.
I think it worked for me because I knew I actively was searching and looking for that story play out in real time during the first lockdown, right? And it is all inspired by these two events. These are snippets from two newspaper clippings, basically, that we saw during the months of the lockdown. And I think that's why the emotional weight of just seeing these headlines pop up everywhere and knowing for a fact that it's around the same months where majority of the privileged population, majority of the Indian middle class was tuning into BS, right? In term when they called a certain witch trial and they termed that as news, okay? And that's why it hits way more, I think, for me.
Okay. Ashwini?
The opening, you mean?
No, the opening, even the whole thing about the sidelining, I felt
the migrant crisis
of the migrant, like to me, like what Aryan is saying about the headline, I almost felt that they became a sort of headline thingy rather than, like it became a sort of backdrop, too much of a backdrop and too little of, them actually taking up the space. But anyways, both actually. Go ahead.
I mean, we always have kind of mixed feelings towards milking tragedies, because I remember when that happened, when 17 workers were killed in a train accident like that, and it triggered me then. It was very triggering, and I also put home on that because it was triggering, and the trigger became anger. And so I know when you are angry, you want to, kind of amplify it. You want it to reach, you want anger, you want everybody to feel your anger. So I know choice, I know the thinking that is driving that choice. I understand. But then again, it becomes very controversial, because at the end of the day, when you are done making it, it becomes piece of art that will be consumed by the people, that will add on to your creative capital. So in that sense, it becomes exploitative. Now
it does. Because you're not seeing your own.
No, but I even thought that the opening where it fades to black, there's a point where it fades to black, and I was like, okay, I'm willing to give you that much. But then you see the shot of the baby crying, and I was like, do you really need to put that? maybe I just got the point of what that tragedy meant by the image, by the sound, by that point. And the shot of the baby came, and I felt really, really yucky about the fact that, you have to put that shot to really milk that idea of someone's death. And these people aren't given any screen time, screen space apart from their purposes of showing that this is a grave tragedy. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But again, this is very idealistic point of view, of course, but like I'm also saying that this is the opening of your film. The opening is supposed to be like a impactful thing, and I was a bit discomforted by, not in a good way, by the whole idea of this. But yeah, sorry, Ashwini, you were saying.
But you also have to look at how Sinha contextualized it. Because I guess there was this conversation in which a conversation, or I don't know, I was walking into the theater when it was happening. So I heard that discussion around how the trains will not be running because
that's like the second line said in that you didn't miss. I don't think you missed much before that was said. Like that's the only thing you get to do.
The fact is that again Sinha is trying to make the state complicit. Again, his point is that his motive is not to show that this happened. His motive is to show that it was engineered in a way.
Exactly.
It happened because of what the state did then.
Right? No, I understand the intention. I just feel that if your filmmaking feels engineered in a section showing the engineered nature of a tragedy, that's an interesting sort of way to decode it. I don't know, but
again, Dhruv, I think
snowflakey. I'm snowflakey is what I'm saying.
This is the same issue that I touched on to while talking about Faraaz, that even if you look at the opening scene of Bheed, okay, which to be very honest, I did not mind. I did mind a lot of those censors. Obviously, I did mind a lot of those things being removed from the film. But at the same time, if I were to look at it very objectively, the way Faraaz approaches to its subject, the way Anubhav Sinha approaches to Bheed, and especially the start of the film, it is coming out of a purely reactionary place. That this is the same response, that this is the same way, and this is the wavelength that we have to meet to evoke those feelings in the audience, which is in itself very dialectical, because it is
I get it.
To your own audience, even they aren't tuning into your film.
I know what reference point I'm holding, and I'm at fault for holding that reference point, but I guess I've just become more immune or more discomforted by imagery which is thrown like that. But anyways, go ahead. You were saying, and Ashwini, you were saying about the idea of the other storyline also, which I minded, the girl and her father.
I mean, you were mentioning that the sidelining of the marginalized characters. I guess Sinha found comfort in his protagonist, and then he did not feel the need to have another representative, because then he had Pankaj Kapoor representing that block. Again, an upper caste person who is using his privilege to
that's what I was thinking. Like it was the other. So even there, you have like a person in like even amongst those, there's someone, right? Like I was thinking about about Jhund even, which is Jhund in the sense that film, I have always had an issue with engaging with that film, but I can't deny the fact that there's something formally at work here. Like there's a moment where the film basically becomes a space of discussion where everyone in the film tells their stories, and it feels like, it doesn't feel like those characters are getting sidelined by Amitabh Bachchan, is my point here. You understand what I'm saying, I think. So yeah, I was thinking from that perspective, not from an international cinema perspective even. So yeah.
Maybe it needed one more character, because I guess a lot of all of Anubhav Sinha films are actually driven by intentionality, that he intends to show this, so he's showing. They are not it's not an organic flow of story. It's very much consciously built into the design. And even in this film, choosing the representative characters, putting them there, and this odd assortment, which kind of puts everybody in the same situation to show that this COVID crisis affected everybody to different degrees. Now, and his mention of that propaganda against Tablighi Jamaat and Muslims during COVID also. All of that are noble choices again, but then again, you also need to have their representation, which is what I feel. Maybe one more character.
I mean, there is that really, I mean, I think the film, there's one really terrific bit of self-acknowledgement that happens midway. And that's the only good thing about the journalistic angle in the film, in my opinion, where Rajkumar Rao goes and is like, "Aapko sirf yahan pe ek hi cheez dikhai di, jab yahan pe sab kuch chal raha hai." And it's the sense that, stories, everyone has a story, a very simple observation, but that, again, what we talked about, how, acknowledge limitations. You are given a limited amount of time and you have limited amount of resources to tell one particular kind of story. The film acknowledges that, but I feel the film still admirably tries to do that for every person. And I'm like, I admire that a lot. I just think it feels like it comes across slightly underwhelming in a lot of portions. But yeah, I will shut up about Bheed now. You guys can continue. I do like the film. I want to like reassure that. Like, I have some issues, but yeah. Sorry.
I think to take us a bit away from, or to deviate from the socio-political angles of this film, I genuinely think that Kashyap and Anubhav Sinha, so when they approach their own films, when they write as well as direct their own films, I have noticed this, that Anubhav Sinha probably should not okay, I might get a lot of hate for this, but he's not that great of a director.
I think some of it was very well directed in some sense.
No, because for me, he's always been very reactionary, which in a way, and he's very he acknowledges this, right? That he basically makes films by taking out these newspaper clippings and being channeling his rage towards a medium that actually promotes and has shown that it can change the society, right? Into an art medium. So I think a lot of his limitations are amplified in Bheed, because a lot of the aesthetical, if you look at the staging and all, it is very jarring, especially this one scene where the first scene where Rajkumar Rao, the newly appointed police officer at the new checkpost, when he's looking outside this window, he's like looking outside and like his jaw is dropped, and we stay with him as the audience. The camera stays on him as this other police officer, as Aditya Srivastava joins him from behind, and then they both look terrified and with their jaws dropped, and they're like, "Oh shit, how do we tackle this now?" And then they go out, and then they see that these people have come in from various parts of the country, from all over the place, from UP, and they're gathered at this border, at this checkpoint, and it just left me wondering that how were they able to get that shot from the inside? How is it even logically possible?
Logic can't
No, but seriously, it's the staging. And not to mention that there's a smart city mall.
Yes, but that's the conceit, I feel. That's like the conceit you have to play around.
But again, it's not just a issue that I've noticed in Bheed. It's the same thing that I see reoccurring in a lot of Anubhav Sinha films. And probably I'm looking way more into this because the last film that I had to review was Anek.
Anek is problematic in technical terms, yes, but I mean,
even in terms of staging,
Ashwani and me are more kinder to it than I think a lot of people are. But I understand what you mean.
So I think Kashyap and Sinha should probably like the next
What,
time
hire
they sit
directors?
to write and no, Kashyap, Kashyap is great at directing. I think that he should always ground himself by having a co-writer. That's what I meant. That they should like switch there and contemplate a bit more.
Put this out on
about the choices
Instagram.
I think even Almost Pyaar was the he's not written any film since Ugly, I think.
I'm not sure. I like
always
Kashyap, but I think
collaborated.
I'm always a tier lower, 1 or 2 tiers lower than the fans. Like he has so many big fans that I'm just like, I feel I'm 1 or 2 tiers less than them as a fan, just because I don't like Bombay Velvet, I guess. Anyways, we
Also
were
like
this.
Sunny more than a friend of mine also likes Sunny more than both of us, and he has written a long thing on Letterboxd.
Please share.
Okay, wow.
And I'll do. I mean, maybe you also came across that. His entire thing is that why are people expecting Sinha to provide solutions to something that does not have a solution? It's
That's
a very
his one
complex
film that actually, yeah, that's true. That's very true. That is the open-ended nature of that film is to be applauded because otherwise, all of his films have some fake happy endings always. It feels like they're just putting a happy ending because they have to. No, but
I mean, I'm
journalistic
sure
angle,
this
guys.
film,
Anything
this film
to
came across that way because of the tweets being removed, the
before
statistics being removed.
journalistic angle. Now, this will provide a channel now. I think I am not that convinced by the climax in Bheed also. The final scene in which food starts to come from the mall and the family of policemen who were posted there. Now, this tragedy has reached a solution of sorts in which nobody
in
will be at
Bheed,
least
right?
sleeping. Yeah, in Bheed only.
Yeah.
Now, it is in stark contrast with, there is this conversation happening among the journalists in which she asked the photographer that why aren't people helping or that, and he says as if before COVID people were helping each other and very living in very much harmony. It's a satire. It's a very strong, sharp satire on the kind of society we are, and be it all the help that happens becomes very performative. Be it the CSR by the corporate or the organizations funded by the government to work for the people. Everything becomes performative in that.
Yep.
Now, after putting that satirical remark, which is really very true, which is painting a very true image of the society that we live in, then people come together in this final, when everything has happened, that
but they have to. But I think Ashwani, he has to do that. Like otherwise, the fund ही नहीं करेगा कोई picture. Like अभी भी नहीं करता. But it's like you have to show a happy ending. Otherwise, or whatever, or 75%, 80% happy ending, I guess. Otherwise, I mean, I feel a lot of these commercial, like that's what at least it was believed that a lot of it's probably our job in some senses to detect these fake. When a filmmaker has to, it almost feels like it's an unnatural thing. Hollywood used to do this a lot during Hays Code. Apna to code hi code hai, ab to jo bhi code ka naam dena hai. So we'll have to basically, there's actually additional work for us as film watchers and film lovers to decode a lot of the stuff that sort of, the things that don't fit, I suppose, or the imperfections almost. I mean, that's my take, but that's also because my hope is less for a lot of the films I've watched after last year. Last year was bad, largely, I feel. So Bollywood ke liye bol raha hu main, or Indian cinema ke liye nahi bol raha.
But too much has happened across the world, including the pandemic and this everything that is happening right now due to the regime that we live in, and yet the films feel obligated to provide a happy ending of sorts. It's like placebo only. Now it does not look convincing because in reality, happy endings have ended themselves. Like there are no happy endings to anything.
I love this take, but I don't think people like it. I think people still want your whatever
they are restricting this movement. You know, people like Sinha are trying to bring a movement in Hindi cinema.
Yeah.
But they are restricting their own movement because even though they have refined the cinematic language, which was used here, the storytelling is still lacking.
They're bound. I think you're right about it. They are bound by the convention, but they are also trying to move ahead. And I think that's always going to be 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. I mean,
I think they are even while they're trying to move forward, I think a lot of these films are just coming across as talking down to the audience with a very condescending tone that, oh, this is how.
I think that explains why they don't do well in one sense.
Exactly,
like to me, at least, it does explain why. At least they've stopped doing well. Like there's other factors also, but I mean, they do have that tone. I mean, the journalistic angle, like when it breaks into speechifying, like really, I think badly performed speechifying also, but badly written also. At one point, there's one scene I mentioned. I've forgotten because I have forgotten.
No, I remember.
When I watched it, I was like, "What is
the
this?
scene where she narrates about it from a flyover or something like that?
Something like that, and I just
Incredible India, basically.
Something like that, and I was like, it just sounds so fake and so unconvincing, and like, see the odd moments in a cinema in a Sinha film are aplenty, but this one maybe took the cake for me. But yeah, I mean, a word on the performances. I thought Rajkumar Rao was great after, like, I don't know, I've seen him after a long time, and I thought, very good. And because I know last time when Ashwani and me and Sanjeet were talking about Anek, we basically lambasted his not Rajkumar Rao, Ayushmann Khurrana's performance in it, because it's terrible in Anek. But yeah, I thought Rajkumar Rao was great. Pankaj Kapoor was very good also. Like lots of good performances all around, I felt.
Dot sequence I mean, I also felt that odd, but I am fine to that sequence because now this is very meta. You know what he's trying to do is that he's making a case for himself that he's only anti-state and not anti-India. You know.
Yes. Anubhav Sinha in that journalistic scene, you mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Scene. That is a purely contrived scene in which an argument pops up out of nowhere that my country
exactly.
And you can see that Sinha is compelled by this, need actually to
to make sure that this is what meant. It's very, it's these kind of choices that make me have no hopes for these filmmakers. No, I'm being very honest. After Faraaz and after some of these bits from Bheed,
I feel this is much more worthy,
though. Definitely.
Yeah.
In terms of its merit, in terms of whatever the norms of responsible filmmaking are concerned. But again, there's so many choices littered throughout these 3 films, I would say, even to a certain extent, almost Pyaar, that just make me go that it's 10 years. We're not even 10 years into this regime. Okay. And if Abhi say you are losing ways to circumvent the state.
Maybe these are baby steps. They are learning. Like that's the other way to think about
this is not how you.
So I'm just providing you hope, which sounds very weird. I find myself providing hope.
You basically talked so much about Anubhav Sinha that you're adding that, making sure that the ending seems thoda aise flowery.
Basically.
छिटा गईनी जैसे बोरा से सरसों छिटाइल बा चल उड़ चल सुगना गौआ के ओर जहाँ माटी में सोना हेराइल बा माटी में सोना हेराइल बा.
Thank you so much for listening. I don't know how this release of this episode is going to happen. Let's see how much time this took, but hopefully you had a good time listening. Hopefully you will watch 2 of these movies at least that we've talked about, Almost Pyaar and Bheed. Faraaz, I guess everyone is already watching on Netflix, so we won't recommend it any further. But yes, if you want to follow Aryan, you can follow him at Aryan Talks Film on Instagram. Letterboxd wala thing I'll put in the description in any case. Ashwani, your Instagram is, which one do you want me to promote? Tell me that.
No. Where I write about film, because the other one is personal. I don't think that requires any promotion.
So this is so you tell me the handle of that one. Ashwani.
Ashwan Nirdeshak.
Yes. So Ashwan Nirdeshak, again, we'll put everything in the description. I'll put his review for Bheed and any other pieces that he has written that he wants me to put. Actually, same with Aryan. If you guys want me to put your pieces in the description, which I think no one reads, I'm very happy to put. I just have to copy and paste, and also I'll get a chance to read them. So yes. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Terminal Cinema on Instagram, and that's about it. Khatam.